Hi, it's Renee again. It's Sunday, the 14th of March, and it's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I thought I'd start with an introduction for the upcoming Scrappy Socks tutorials. Tell you a little bit about how I started knitting many moons ago, and what you'll need to be able to knit the Scrappy socks and how to do it. That's what I'm planning to do in about, I don't know, 7 or 8 small sections, parts. I restarted, I should say, knitting in 2009, I think. Yeah, that's the year when my mother died. And I say restarted because before that, a lot of years before that, I mean, I'm talking about 50 years ago, I started knitting. I was taught by my grandmother and my mother with very much patience. And I also learned how to crochet, but that's another story. So that was 2009. I started knitting again. I think it was a scarf or something. Don't know where it is. Don't know if I finished it. But soon, a year later, I started getting interested in knitting socks. And that was the normal socks, not the scrappy ones. I always thought it was the best kept secret in the knitting world by the older ladies in my family. I used to see them knit all the time with 4 or 5 needles, the long ones, because they would hold them under their armpits, one needle if they were knitting, and the other one was free. And they would knit socks, and I couldn't get it. I couldn't understand what they were doing, because obviously they were knitting in the round, and it eventually became a sock, but I had no clue. And I thought they kept it a secret from me for a very long time. So in 2010, I thought, I'm going to learn this. It's like the Pippi Longstocking quote. What does she say? I can't do it, but I think I can, or something like that, because I really felt that way. I wanted to learn. Oh no, she says, I haven't done it yet, so I think I can. That's the phrase she uses, and that's hilarious. Okay, so I was sitting on the sofa with the long needles, because I thought that's how you knit socks, right? With the laptop on my lap, knitting in the round, reading books about it, and watching YouTube videos. I've seen them all, I think. And well, eventually, I don't know how, but it clicked. So I knit my first pair of normal socks on 4 needles or 5 needles, and I did it one at a time, and I still have the pair. I should have brought it here, but I forgot. Maybe another time. But I thought, well, I can do it now. And then when you see more YouTube videos and you see other ways of knitting things, you think, I can combine all the things, the new techniques or the new methods, and that's how I figured out to do it my way. And that's what I'm going to show you. And please, there are so many good tutorials online. if you don't want it to, if you don't want to do it my way, please look them up and you will be satisfied. You will learn. I'm just going to show you the way that I do it. It's not the way, but it's my way. And I hope you learn from it. And if not, if you don't like me or you don't like the way I do it, that's fine. Find another person who will teach you. So, I talked about, that's a funny story, I talked about how I was about 10 years old when I started knitting. We had to learn on school in those ages, ages ago, previous century. We had a subject called crafts. You learned knitting, crocheting, needlepoint, and there must have been some other things, but I forgot. So the first time I learned how to knit, it was supposed to be a scarf for a doll. It was, I remember it, I can see it clearly in my mind. It was a pink cotton thing, and the teacher had me cast on these stitches, I think about 20 or something like that, on the long needles, the long needles you had in those days. But I wasn't getting it. I didn't like it. I don't know. We had to take it home, and I remember we had a break, and she said you have to finish it at home in the break or during the break, and when you come back to school it's finished. You can do it. Well, I tried. And my mother saw my face. She was so sorry for me, because it was having decreases where it shouldn't have increased, and increases not in the right place. It was supposed to be a straight scarf. It wasn't. It was dirty. But my mother had pity on me, and she took it from me, and she finished the damn thing. Excuse the language. I was so happy and relieved. So when I got back to school, I handed it in. She looked at me, she looked at the scarf, and she said, well, I'm so happy it's finished. Tell your mother she did a great job. And I was like, how does she know? My mother did it. But it was obvious. I mean, the beginning was my work, all dirty and with all the mistakes, and my mother finished the damn thing. Okay, that's a little side story. So the scrappy socks, what do you need? You need, if you're going to do it my way, I use 100 centimeters long circular needle. I use chowgu, but use anything you have. But if you want to do it my way, it's one long knitting needle, okay? The second thing you need, because we have to make a spot, we have to identify a spot where you later on are going to knit the afterthought heels, because that's what I use as a heel. So you need 2 stitch markers. They're the same color, but you can use different colors. It doesn't matter. If you don't have these things, because they open like, what's it called? I don't know, where you close a diaper with. I lost the word. And they close again. And this is how you use it. We've knitted from the toe up, and then at a certain point, I will explain that where that is, you insert your stitch marker, and also on the other sock. So 2 stitch markers. If you don't have a stitch marker, use a piece of thread. That's also fine. You need to measure your foot. So, oh, that's, you can't read that. But it says my name, 24 centimeters, heel at 19 centimeters, because the heel, the afterthought that I'm going to show you, takes about a 5 centimeter. That's about 2 inches. So take an A4 or a white piece of paper or whatever, cardboard, what you have, with barefoot, with your barefoot, and trace around it, and then cut it out. If you want to have a template to put it in the sock and see where you are, you can do that, like this. Say, I would have knit until here, then you can see where you are. If you make a line on the template, I never use the template because I know my measurements. So if you don't want to use the template, that's fine. Just know the length of your foot. In my case, it's 24 centimeters. In your case, it's something else. Okay, that's it. And you need sock yarn. Now, you can use whatever you have, but sock yarn is sock yarn because it's suitable to knit socks with, and they fit into your shoes. If you want to have house socks, you can use a thicker yarn, but I always use sock yarn, which is 4-ply. And in my case, I always use sock yarn that has 75% wool and 25% nylon. And the nylon you need to strengthen the yarn. If you would knit socks with only alpaca or merino or whatever you have, you can do that, but the nylon makes sure that your sock will hold when you're wearing them in your shoes, and they stay strong. Sometimes I have one cake of yarn, and then I use the inner thread for, say, the right sock, and I use the outer thread. See, this comes from the outside, for the other sock. You can do it this way, or you can use 2 balls of the same color, or you can use 2 different balls of the same color. That's up to you. I've knit them in all sorts of ways. For instance, these I have knitted with the cuffs, the toes, the heels and the toes in the same color throughout the whole sock and the pair, so you can see that they match. And in between I've used other colors. So that's an option. It's definitely okay. This pair, for instance, has different cuffs, the same heels and the same toes, and in between all kinds of different yarns. That's an option you can do. This is a pair where the cuffs are switched up with the toes. See, the blue is here and the blue is on the cuff on the other one, and the same goes for this one. And the toes are not matching. That's totally fine. That's up to you, whatever you like. And this one, this pair, is totally mixed up. You see, different toes, different heels, and different cuffs. So there is no sock police, and I don't care what you do, as long as you like what you're doing, right? Okay, I think I will do the whole tutorial in 7 or 8 parts, because I'm not going to knit the sock live because that would take forever, right? So I'll begin with a certain part, let's say the cast on, and then I will either cut the video or speed it up. But I'm not sure about that yet, because I'm not an editor, I'm not a filmmaker, I've never done such a thing, so I need my daughter to help me. About the 7 or 8 parts, I will start, well, with the introduction, which is this video. Then I will do the cast on, and I use, so you can already look it up because it's all over the internet, on YouTube especially. The cast on that I use is Judy's Magic Cast On, and I think she invented this. It's Judy Becker, so look her up. It's a great tutorial, and other people have done it also. So Judy's Magic Cast On, 2 at a time, 2 socks at the same time. I use magic loop and I do toe up. So that will be part 1. Part 2, because the introduction is part 1. Part 3 will be knitting the foot. Now you can use a pattern and just stockinette stitch is also a pattern. That's very easy. They call that plain vanilla. That's become a word. What else do we have? We have, this is the cuff, but this is 2 by 2 rib. So you knit 2 and you purl 2, and you can do it for the leg, but you can also do it for the front of the sock. You can also do it for the back, but I don't know if I would recommend that. So think about a pattern you want to use. I think I'll do the tutorial in the plain vanilla, so the stockinette stitch, okay? And you have to think, when we're knitting the foot, about the placement of the stitch marker, which is at 5 centimeters before your total foot length. That's important. Part 4 will be knitting the leg. So that's the part when you, let me find this one. When you have knitted from the toe up and you've placed your stitch marker, you're going to knit the leg and the cuff. Yes? You can choose your length. You can make them very short, like here, and then begin with the ribbing. That's fine. I usually make them, if I fold them like this, I usually make the leg just as long as the foot is. It's just my preferred way of having my socks knitted. So, but you can choose any length you want. And you can also think about your pattern. Would you like to have the 2 by 2 rib on your leg, or just continue the plain knitting you have done here, so the stockinette stitch? All options and choices to make. Okay, then part 5 will be the cast off. The one I'm using all the time is Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. I came across that technique and I've used it ever since. But again, there are many other ways to finish off your cuff. Part 6 will be the scary part, because we are going to cut the little stitch that is here held by the stitch marker. So part 6 will be the afterthought heel knitting. So it will be about picking up the stitches, cutting the stitch, unraveling the stitch and all the stitches, closing the gap, because we have to do something here to make it into a heel, and that is we knit another toe, but then the other way around. And I will explain how I do my decreases. And the same goes, I forgot to say that, for the cast on. Judy's Magic Cast On, and then I will explain how I increase for the toe. I forgot that. Okay, the Kitchener stitch, that's part 7, I think. Then we are done with the sock. I will explain to you how I do the Kitchener stitch and how it's done by everyone. And I will give you my mantra about that. That's the way I always remember it, okay? It's very easy. Don't worry. You'll get this. Okay, and maybe I'll do an extra one, part 8, about how I choose my colors. Yeah, I think, because people ask, how do you choose your colors? Well, I think instinctively I choose my colors, but maybe I can explain a bit more about that and show you what I do. Okay, and I will show you how I change my colors, and that's, well, my grandmother taught me a way, and I recently, no, it's about 2 years ago, I saw someone doing the same technique, and it had a name. It had it's called the clasp weft join. Look it up, because it's all over the YouTube, and it's a perfect way to do it. And I sort of forgotten how she taught me that, and because I saw the video, I thought, oh yes, that's what my grandmother did. And before that, I was changing my colors in a different way, and I didn't know, and I didn't realize it had a name. So that was very funny. And I'll show you that too. Okay, so I'm very excited. My box of color balls, little balls, is waiting to start. I'm not sure if I'm going to make the tutorial with the same toes and cuffs and heels. I'm not sure. I'm going to film it this afternoon, so wish me luck. And if you don't have scrap yarn, people also ask me that all the time. If you don't have scrap yarn, but you do have new skeins, I think I know how to pronounce it now, skeins. If you have new skeins of sock yarn, steal a few grams of the new skeins. No, skeins it is. That's what I do all the time. I cheat. I didn't knit any socks with this yarn. I just took a few grams, and now it's scrap yarn. Okay. See you soon with part 2.